Hello, thank you for taking time out today to meet with me and review this presentation for our company, Preston Incorporated. I collected some data to support a few human resources metrics that I think we would benefit from tracking during 2025 as the company reaches its third year in operation and now has 50 employees organization-wide. So the first thing I wanted to do on this call today is to go over the current state of our organization and the data that we do have access to at this moment. So a few things that we all know: the current number of employees that we have and that we need to maintain operations is 50. I did review the job descriptions and I separated the 50 employees into five main departments. That includes our software developers, leadership, sales and marketing, our operations or administrators, and our client support account managers. One thing to take notice of is that the cost of the workforce has exceeded the overall organizational revenue for the past year. Our revenue last year was $2 million. However, just the cost of our workforce was $2.5 million. While this is not out of the norm for a small startup company like ours, I do believe that we can use some of these HR analytics and metrics to track and to encourage cost savings in certain areas. So the three metrics that I propose that we focus on in 2025 are going to be absenteeism, turnover, and morale. Absent employees and employees leaving the company voluntarily and involuntarily can create a lot of unnecessary costs to the organization. And of course, we can't discuss these without also looking at employee morale and the way that affects attendance and that affects employees who decide to leave the organization. So the first metrics that we are going to focus on is absenteeism. There are many reasons why an employee may be absent from work. These include illness, injury, child or elder care, burnout, stress, bullying, harassment, depression, and disengagement. However, the cost of these absences can be great, especially on a small organization. These absences can reduce productivity, and that includes work deadline delays, lower productivity from replacement employees who may be untrained in the specific areas needed to cover, possible overtime to those substitute employees who may have already reached their 40 hours a week, as well as an impact on the quality of the product, because someone who is serving as a substitute may be just a little unfamiliar with that responsibility. Absenteeism will be tracked on a weekly basis and compiled to analyze through a monthly report that will be sent out to all leaders in the organization. This data will be used to identify patterns and barriers that are preventing employees from arriving to work on time or completing the entire workday. The calculations used are pulled from Investing in People by Boudreaux et al. ADP will also be used as the company has already been using this software and it has maintained all of the historical data that is needed. That way, not only are we tracking in 2025, but we'll also be able to see our outcomes from the past 2.5 years and use that to inform strategy in the coming year. Our next focus is going to be on employee turnover or employee separations. Due to the size of the company, both voluntary and involuntary separations will be measured, and we will measure these twice a year starting in 2025. Turnover costs can be difficult to pin down because there are extensive factors that contribute to the cost. We will see an example on the following slide of an exhaustive list of costs related to retention and rehire, and this is why I think it is an important metric for us to track and figure out how we can reduce costs as it relates to these aspects. So as mentioned previously, here is an exhaustive list of all of the elements that can be included in turnover and retention costs, as well as rehiring new employees. These costs have been separated into 4 different categories, including initial cost of separation, for example, exit interview, separation pay, unemployment tax, etc., replacement training, lost productivity costs, and training costs for new hires. Because turnover costs can be very complex and extensive, for the purpose of our tracking, we will focus on these 4 specific costs connected to the first stage of employee separations. Once we master tracking these 4, then we will expand the list of metrics that we will track. As you see in the included graphic, we will use the sum of exit interviews, administrative functions, separation pay, and unemployment tax to calculate the total cost of separation activities. Turnover will also be tracked by employees who turn in their official resignation, as well as reports from managers who have identified employees on their team who have ceased to report to work. The last metric that we are going to be focusing on in 2025 is employee morale, defined as an employee's level of job satisfaction with high morale, referring to happy, engaged employees, and low morale, referring to employees who may be understimulated or dissatisfied with aspects of their work. Some causes of low morale can be an unchallenging environment, lack of growth opportunities within the organization, poor communication, lack of empowerment, distrust of managers, as well as inflexible working conditions that can cause employees and staff members to be disengaged from the organization and the work that they are doing. So just to expand on the importance of tracking morale and employee engagement, this is from a survey from the Gallup, a global analytics and advisory firm. In 2022, they did survey 67,000 people. The results of that survey showed that only 32% of the total group were engaged in the workforce. Using that data, the Gallup was able to estimate 22 million people are essentially disengaged from the work that they are doing and the organization that they are working for, which has resulted in an estimated 350 billion impact to the economy. So it is very important to make sure your employees are engaged and to provide some of those benefits and work-life programs that will keep them happy and engaged in the work that they are doing. So in order to track employee engagement, we have proposed that we will do a quarterly employee engagement survey. The reason why we are doing quarterly is because our first 3 years, we actually did not conduct any surveys at all. So we are going to start off with 4 a year, just so we can identify any patterns, address them, and also shift our organization strategy based on the results. So the 5 focus areas that we are going to be asking about, informing our questions around, are going to be job satisfaction, compensation and benefits, work environment, stress and health, as well as referrals relating to whether an employee is likely or unlikely to refer someone they know to work at the organization. So of course, 2025 is going to be the first year that we really dive into these human resources metrics and use them to create strategy. But we do want to just set general key performance indicators that we can use as a measuring tool for the data that we're pulling. So these KPIs were based on just industry averages. So our goal absenteeism rate is going to be 1.5%, which is not going to be too bad because we are a small company. Turnover, our goal is to have less than 10% turnover. And morale, we are looking for at least an 80% average satisfaction rate from those employee engagement surveys.